So today roles are reversed, and it is my turn to interview our amazing tech guru slash CrossFit L3 slash endurance athlete, Johnny Bouchard. Um, Johnny, we love that you write endurance programs for Performance Plus because you CrossFit, you
I do.
understand the methodology of CrossFit, and you are a proven elite. I'm going with elite endurance athlete because tell us your endurance background.
Okay, so elite is definitely a bit of an overstatement. Um,
Wait, I'm
for
interjecting. If you can run more than 5 miles, I consider everyone elite.
okay, so
Coming from a gymnast.
coming from a gymnast and coming from like somebody that lifts weights, that's definitely an elite level of running.
Okay.
But I'm a A plus normal person endurance athlete. So
That's good.
some benchmarks for that is if you can do an Olympic distance triathlon in like under 2 hours and 45 minutes, that's like A plus work. If you can do a half Ironman in like 5 hours, 5 to 5.5 hours, that's A plus work. If you can run a marathon in like three hours to 3 hours and 15 minutes, that's really good. So I have done all those things. I don't want to say that I can do all those things right now, because I'm an older man than when I did those things in the past. But I do think that like if I spend some time training, I could get back to it. But that being said, I do actively always have some sort of endurance thing that I'm training, and maintaining a level of CrossFit. So I may not be elite, but I definitely am not making a liar out of you.
All right. So before we delve into how you've programmed and how you've trained while doing CrossFit style workouts or CrossFit workouts, um, I think I love thinking like if CrossFit were around when I was a collegiate gymnast, how much better of a gymnast
Oh
I
my
would be.
God.
So if you were to take some of these more endurance athletes and bring them to a setting where they're deadlifting and they're doing pull-ups and they're doing all this other metabolic conditioning and strength conditioning, um, like how much better do you think they would be?
I, so I have measurables for this because I took a group of women, that's like in our local community, who were very anti CrossFit, like small running club, because they were so scared of it. And I tricked one of them into just coming in and doing some one-on-one work with me. And I said, we're going to do running prehab strength. And her running
That's
prehab
awesome.
strength would be like deadlifts or kettlebell swings, and then like single leg squats and like some sort of aerobic piece mixed in there just to kind of challenge a little bit. And she's like, I just did a half marathon and I PR'd. I don't know what happened. And she told all her friends. And so I kind of made a class out of it for a while. This is
Yeah.
pre-pandemic. And
Yeah.
all these women who were somewhere between 35 and 45 had kids, but had trained like track kind of running since college, all did better as like 35 to 45 year olds with kids than they were doing as 25-year-olds that didn't have any of those responsibilities and were just training like really hardcore running. So I think as a measurable, like it's steroids, man. It's legal steroids for endurance athletes. And I'm guessing it would have been that way for gymnastics too, right?
Yeah, I love that you have like hardcore evidence and that you also had to trick them into being like, oh, 21, 15, 9 deadlifts, kettlebell swings, and one-legged squats. Yeah, you're just doing like some prehab training for
Uh-huh.
your, that is the funniest part. But yeah, it definitely, I know like at 40, I'm 49 next week, and I know that I actually probably am just as strong in just like the strength portion. I don't, I have more fear. So like the flipping, I'm not as good at, because I actually have fear now. But yes, the fact that I can deadlift like 290 and do like 20 press handstands in a row is so cool to see the data of that. Now, I need to jump on your endurance training because that is lacking in my training as well too. So first, how did you like have you always been an endurance athlete and then you found CrossFit or vice versa?
So I kind of inadvertently started training endurance work. I played like ball sports in high school, and one of them being basketball. And I was just never the fastest guy on our team. Like I could never win the sprint. But every single year, one of our tests was to do a 3 mile run. And I was the best at that, to the point where the high school cross country coach was like, "Hey, will you come run on our team?" And I'm like, I don't understand why you guys hate this so much. You just run as fast as you can for 3 miles and hope you don't throw up. And that was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess I'm more suited for that. Like I have better slow twitch fiber muscles, and my genetics kind of lean towards that. And then I enlisted in the military when I was 18, and got in with a bunch of guys early on that were training to run the Air Force Marathon. And so I started doing that. Like, I mean, I got out of basic training and started doing that immediately. So I didn't have a lot of time to kind of like choose, I don't think. I just kind of followed these dudes, started doing this thing, and then ran a marathon, ran it in like 3 hours, and didn't understand even that was good at the time. Just thought like, oh, okay, cool, that's what you do. And it wasn't until I actually started doing CrossFit in 2009 where in the meantime I had become a smoker in there, which is a whole other story. But like I had picked up that habit somewhere in my Air Force career. And started doing CrossFit, and I was terrible at everything except for running. And so like anytime we did a mile plus, I would beat everybody in the gym and then make fun of them because I smoked cigarettes and could beat them at running. And that was kind of like oh, I guess I'm better at this endurance thing. Maybe if I'm going to want to be competitive, I should lean into that a little bit. And maybe not put all my eggs in, being an adult gymnast kind of thing. So
what was your first like competitive endurance competition?
So I ran a 5K when I was I think 16, 17 in Ohio, where I grew up. Every Thanksgiving there's a company that puts on a turkey trot. I ran the turkey trot, won it for my age group. Did it, like, my dad was ecstatic, and I was like, I don't know, man, I just went out there and ran as fast as I could. And that was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm not normal with this. Like I can just go out there and run hard and feel good about it.
And once you started getting more into CrossFit, what do you think are the movements or workouts that really helped push your envelope of becoming a better endurance athlete?
So I got hardcore. I got into CrossFit and then immediately started taking like the SME courses. So I took the mobility course, and the second one I took was CrossFit Endurance with Brian McKenzie. And so that was kind of like my introduction into applying CrossFit into it. And honestly, like, the thing that endurance athletes don't do is lift heavy or train really hard anaerobic systems. So workouts like Diane and Fran and Grace and Elizabeth and Amanda and all those workouts that like make you have to be strong and then also make you have to push really hard for a short duration made me a way, way, way better endurance athlete. And now I can understand it from a science standpoint, but at the time I just kind of understood the bro science of like, if I do these workouts, if I get better at deadlifting and doing handstand push-ups really fast and with intensity, then all of a sudden my running gets better, or my biking, or whatever it was. But it fills that gap, right? Endurance athletes, again, they might do track work, but nobody goes out and does track work with a sled. There's no resistance on it, and there's like a threshold of pushing yourself you can hit, and CrossFit really adds a layer to that, which is interesting.
Yeah. And if you look at the like CrossFit games, how they program, right, you have to be amazing at a ruck run for whatever miles, 15 miles, and then a fast, Fran time. So it really is the fittest on earth for that variety of sport, and so it is cool to see that.
This is something I find just wildly interesting about games athletes. So games athletes you look at them and you're like, these dudes can do crazy gymnastics. These guys can lift, and women can lift really, really heavy. But I feel like people kind of shit on them for not being good endurance athletes. these, like, Dan Bailey was the first one. That dude is sick fast. And like now there's people that are in, in semifinals this year that are doing that snatch 800-meter run workout. And they're doing like legitimate, like minute 45, minute 30, 800-meter runs, which is incredible. Like that is so fast. That is so fast that like there's like high level track kids in high school that aren't running that fast. And that's pretty cool to see how elite all those athletes are at all the different things they do.
I was very impressed with that at semis too. Like, and just listening to, Chris Henshaw, who runs Aerobic Capacity, just like how he was talking to some of the athletes about how to pace that, right? Because it is very abnormal that you're going to go 1 rep max snatch after like a very fast 800-meter sprint almost.
Yep.
And that the ability of these athletes as we continue through the sport of becoming endurance athletes while excelling in CrossFit is absolutely pushing the envelope and phenomenal.
And it is. And I think that's the greatest thing about this style of training, right? Is like you can take these pieces and bias one thing, but still maintain the other. So you can still maintain your Olympic weightlifting strength, your gymnastic strength, and then bias out your endurance, or vice versa, and like still keep improving that fitness like broadly over time. And you end up becoming a monster, an elite apex predator of sorts, right? Because I don't think that there's anybody else in sport that can do what those people do. And I know a lot of people that can run really fast, but zero of them can do just a full snatch with an empty barbell. And to see people like female athletes like doing 200 plus pounds on a snatch after they just sprinted as hard as they could, freaking
crazy. Like even I think like just watching that and the fitness community learning like how you can improve in one sport by doing a multitude of sports. Like I just did gymnastics at Rutgers, and I now through social media can see how the girls train in the off season. And it is vastly different from what we knew in the late 90s, right? And they are doing definitely more functional fitness, like a CrossFit style training to make their sport specific goals stronger and better. And so that is, I guess, a good segue into why we asked you, or you really volunteered, like, hey, let me write these programs, these endurance programs for our Performance Plus athletes, because I can make you better in both areas. So kind of what sparked your interest, and just talk a little bit more about your how excited you are about this.
Yeah. So
your thought process.
My thought process on this is a couple things. One, we have multiple plans that we're putting out, right? So we have everything 5K, 10K, half marathon, all the distances for running. And then at some point we'll put out some triathlon ones too. People get interested in different things, right? That's kind of like my ebb and flow with this is I was more endurance biased athlete when I was younger. I found CrossFit, and I actually for a long time got away from the endurance stuff and just got into CrossFit. I got to start in that period of time where the games didn't have all the barriers to entry to get there. You could just go sign up for a sectional and then hopefully make it. So I was like, screw endurance. I want to become a games athlete.
We're all Johnny.
Didn't work out, but I still, like, for probably 6 years of my life, really didn't care about endurance stuff other than the things that were programmed in a normal kind of CrossFit way. But the reason I want to write the plans is twofold. One is it's such a large weakness of people. I guarantee you, if we took a poll of all of the gyms in the world and said, what's the worst attended day in your gym? It's 5K row or 5K run. And it's crazy to see 49-year-old badass former games level athletes who can do press handstand, deadlift 290, snatch 130, 140 pounds, but are frightened of running 5,000 meters.
It scares me, Johnny.
Yeah. So I wanted to help people get over that and realize that, like, if you do that, workouts like Kelly, and Filthy 50 and some of the other longer duration workouts.
Michael's, I think,
Like,
like a 800-meter run and then like 50 GHDs and hip extensions, right?
yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Murph, even
Uh-huh.
that's a long endurance workout. But if you
Yeah.
just train that, like if you took a month of your life and you trained like 3 days a week for a 5K, and then you went back and just went and you'd be like, oh my God, the rest of my fitness is so much better. And I didn't really
Mhm.
lose anything. So that's kind of like
Yeah.
goal one, is to provide that level of optionality for somebody that wants to overcome their fear of the 5K. And then the other side of it is kind of the other piece of my own story, which is I'm gonna do CrossFit for the rest of my life. Like it is not, that's not an option until I would like to have deadlifted heavy on the last day that I have on this planet. Um,
I love that.
but I am going to have other interests along the way. And I know you're like this as
Mhm.
well. You've gotten to mountain biking, and like getting back into endurance stuff is something that came because after 10 years of doing CrossFit, at least 1 hour a day, oftentimes two, I just wanted to do something different and be exposed to something different on top of it. And there has to be a way to do that, but not completely lose your fitness. And you've seen me before in a cycle where I just like, I'm gonna lose my fitness completely and I'm gonna get super skinny and like
Yeah.
look like I'm dying. But like there's a way to not do that, right? And to like go train for an Ironman or go train for a marathon and not give up all your fitness. So that's the other goal of these plans, is to provide something that can be done in three days a week, layered on top of your other training, and be able to give people that outlet when they get interested in it, but have them be able to come back and not lose all their fitness.
I think that's a really good point. Like, you don't have to hyper focus, right? So obviously, I'm not winning the Ironman, but I just want to get through it. Like when I gravel bike, I was mountain biking for a while, and then I hit two trees and decided this is not my sport. So I went right to
Smart.
gravel biking, which is so awesome. So like when I'm in a gravel bike race, my goal is I'm never gonna probably win, right? I just want to comfortably get through it and be proud of myself for finishing 36 miles, right? Um, and so I think that there's a great balance, right? So obviously, if you want to win an Ironman, you might have to hyper focus. But here, it's like you're taking me and saying, hey, when you see that 5K run pulled up on your CrossFit day, don't fear it. You're going to conquer it. And like, that's all I want. And like, I think like me running through that program will show me like I can have both, you know, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too.
You absolutely can. And I fully agree. You're not going to ever win an Ironman unless you get really specific, and that's kind of all you work on. But I also think the other kind of piece of this is a lot of people in endurance communities grossly overtrain it. And
Yes.
there's not a lot of good science around the fact that you need to run 6 days a week to do a marathon. It's just because it's always kind of been that way. And so I think there's a lot of bad information out there that kind of gives people this like false reality of, if I want to do my first marathon, I have to quit all these things I love and just do that. And you don't. Like, you can actually not just finish and survive the marathon. Like, if you have a good base of fitness from training like we train, and then you just add a little specificity on top of it, you can actually go out there and excel. You can do very, very well in your age group. You can get done and not feel injured at the end of it. And the next day, go back in the gym and do your thing. And where a lot of people that just bias that, like, I'm going to drop CrossFit for, the next 14 weeks and I'm going to train for the marathon, they finish the marathon, they don't do that well, they lose a lot of fitness, and they feel like crap at the end. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
really having your cake and eating it too.
So let's talk a little bit more about the program. So let's say I want to do a half marathon, but I have like zero, like take me as a gymnast, right? Like 3 miles to me is like, oh God, that's hard. Um, yeah, I can do it, but I don't. Would I start with like the half marathon program,
Mm-hmm.
or should I start? Okay,
Yep.
so
So
that's helping me build
yeah, and
that distance.
all of them have the prerequisite of, you have to be able to run a 5K. That's the only thing. If you can't currently make it through a 5K,
Okay,
you we should talk and we figure out
yeah,
like what's going on. But if you can even slog, run, walk through a 5K, you can do the
uh-huh.
program. so they all start out with that like level of volume, 3 miles in a week, and then they progressively overload and build in a very smart, obtainable way into whatever your goal is. They're also the 5K programs a month. The half marathon is a 3-month program, so it's not
Okay.
even, it's a quarter of your year, like where you're taking 3 days a week and dedicating it to that training.
And then the other days, I can continue along my regular schedule. Do you also recommend, like, if I'm doing the 3 day a week, like on the day I'm training with the run program, to just do that?
I say it's a time thing and a training
Yeah.
age thing. Like
Okay.
I intentionally like try to line up like things that are going to make my legs tired on a hard run day, because it feels more like running up hills do. I live in Atlanta. There's a lot of hills here. So I do that on purpose, but I've been doing this for 12 years. So it's, I can handle it.
Yeah.
If you're time poor because you have a bunch of kids or work or combination thereof, then just don't do, just that's your fitness for the day. Just go do all those
Yep.
3 days a week. If you're not time poor and you've done enough like training leading into it, like you're not new to training, then you could easily do a CrossFit workout on top of this in a day and be completely fine.
Love it. So we now have programs, endurance programs, 5K, 10K, half marathon, and
Marathon, full marathon.
marathon. So we can take that functional fitness athlete and turn them into a confident runner. Like, I think confidence is really what the training will help them do as well too.
Yeah.
And proven, because you've run them, you've done it. This is how you train. Just like I wrote the strict bar muscle up program. That is literally how I got the strict bar muscle up. And then I was like, oh my God, I got to write this out fully so other people can do it as well too.
Yeah.
Kind of how
And
these were born.
absolutely. So especially the marathon program, this is something that I started using personally, and then with athletes that I coach have refined it over the course of the last 5 years to now, like, this, it's something that has 100% works. I've used it with probably over 100 different people, like one-on-one at this point, and I'm excited to like give it to everybody and see how many people can get out there at PR. So I'm gonna tell a quick story. There a while ago, we'll call it HQ's Instagram posted this photo of this guy who said, I finished an Ironman and I didn't do any training except for my regular CrossFit training. But they posted his time and his time was awful. And like it would be like if like a endurance athlete came to your gym and did Fran and they were like, I RX Fran, but it took me 27 minutes. You'd be like,
Right.
bro, you did
You missed the stimulus.
yeah. You did
Right.
heavy thrusters and pull-ups as the strength workout. Good job. But you didn't do
Right.
Fran. That was the
Right.
equivalent of this. So the other thing that I
Yeah.
really care about with these programs is it makes it so CrossFit's in the endurance community gets kind of crapped on. People are like, oh yeah, you're CrossFit or whatever. I get it. But they get happy when CrossFitters are walking in races. The other thing with
Right.
these programs is you are going to be actually good at it. Like, no, like you're going to represent what we do in our kind of fitness very, very well if you complete this program. So it's not just a survive, get better, get more confident. You're also going to thrive if you do it. And if you adhere to it with some level of specificity, you're going to go out and whatever your goal is, just absolutely freaking smash it. And then humble brag about how awesome you did.
Yeah. I love it. All right. I got a few questions, rapid fire.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to take it on the half marathon route, right? Music or no music?
Music.
Nipple chafing cream or none?
Absolutely. And all sensitive areas of the body, you can think about that however you want. They get covered in that stuff.
Got it. Do you stop for the water tables and chat and say thank you, or do you just run by and splash it over you?
I run by, splash it over me. Unless I'm having an absolutely miserable day, then I'm going to hang out for a little bit.
Okay. Do you handstand walk over the finish line or you sprint over it?
I absolutely handstand walk over it.
Boom. Love it.
Got it. Loved it.
I love it.
Well done. Maybe the hosting mic should go to you. You're very good at this.
Well, thank you. It was it's fun to chat with you, just like kind of about what you're passionate about. Like I'm always on the other end chatting about like what I'm passionate about. So it's good to get insight into the Johnny Bouchard runner, endurance athlete, not just the techie guru, who also plays guitar. You have a lot of like interesting, um, little facets about you. You're a
I
very well-rounded person.
I dabble a lot. Like
You do.
I dabble for sure. So
Mm-hmm. Well,
I
good.
it's also I feel like you're like this as well. You decide you're gonna do something and then you just go do it. Like you
Yes.
got into guitar and you're like, I'm gonna figure this out, and you work on it until you get it and you're happy with it, and then you find something else. And I think if you do that enough times, you just end up with like this like weird like circus like collection of skills that you have.
That's funny because my guitar teacher is like, I have never met so many people, like a person with so many like um different genres of like extracurricular activities. Like I go to the shooting range, I gravel bike, I
It's
mountain bike, I play guitar. I'm like,
that
it's so crazy.
and then on top of it, you've had a fashion brand before. You have a very good idea. Like you went and figured out how to
Yeah.
use Adobe Illustrator, which still blows my mind. You went and like that's like, hey, let me go figure out the most annoying thing in the entire world, and you're like, oh, I can open up Illustrator files and edit this now. Like that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, thanks. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm excited to launch these programs. Where can we find them, Johnny? And just more information about all that.
So they're going to be on performance plus programming.com. And then if you follow me at coach_Johnny B on Instagram, I'm going to actually start putting out more things around the launch of this about training endurance on top of CrossFit and kind of how to make that possible. And then if you follow at performance program on Instagram, performance plus program on Instagram, there'll be lots of stuff on there.
Good. And will we add the link in the notes as well,
We
too?
will add the link in the show notes.
Perfect. Well, it was so fun learning about your insight into endurance and how you wrote these programs, and also creams everywhere. No chafing.
No chafing. I made a terrible mistake the first time I ever did a marathon with not
Yes.
using that stuff, and it was painful.
Oof.
I don't want to do that again.
All right. Good. We learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
All right. Well,
All
thanks,
right, guys.
Johnny.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was awesome.
All right.
Bye.